Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a topic that, well, it touches every single one of us, yet our culture often struggles, really struggles, to talk about it with true wisdom or compassion. We're diving into the incredibly powerful book, It's Okay That You're Not Okay, by Megan Devine.
Hmm.
There's this profound paradox, right, at the heart of being human. No one can live your life for you,
Hmm.
and no one can make it alone. We are here to love and, inevitably, to lose. If we commit to loving deeply, loss and grief are just. They're part of the deal. And yet, for something so universal, how often do we feel utterly unprepared when it is just kind of culturally ill-equipped?
Indeed. And Megan Devine, who, was a seasoned psychotherapist herself, her world was completely torn apart. It was an ordinary summer day in 2009. She actually watched her partner drown.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and this wasn't just like a professional challenge for her. It was this intensely personal devastation. And it immediately revealed a shocking truth, her words. None of what I knew applied to loss of that magnitude.
Even with all her training.
Exactly. Despite her clinical skills, years of helping others, her own experience just exposed this massive gap, a great divide, she calls it, between what we most want and where we are now in how we genuinely deal with grief. It's this gap between, expectation and reality, between what we offer and what's actually needed.
That really sets up our deep dive today, doesn't it? Our mission, then, is to unpack why our sort of prevailing cultural approach to grief often makes things harder, not easier. We'll explore how so much well-intentioned comfort actually hurts, what truly happens to your mind and body during profound loss, and maybe most importantly, discover a new, more compassionate model for tending to grief, a way to truly live with it, not just try to fix it or erase it.
We're going to explore how, as she says, we're not here to fix our pain, but to tend to it, and that crucial idea that some things cannot be fixed, they can only be carried. This isn't about moving on, it's about moving with the experience. So yeah, get ready to sort of rehumanize grief and find a path forward that really honors your individual journey, your unique experience.
Okay, so diving right in. Our first look at this book immediately challenges those well-meaning instincts we have. Megan Devine is pretty stark in revealing that much of what we think of as comfort actually hurts. Let's start by dissecting why those common phrases, the ones that seem so harmless, can be so damaging. When someone's in deep pain, they hear things like, "You're strong enough," or "They're in a better place now." Maybe you've even said that yourself. I know I have. But for the person grieving, these often feel just profoundly wrong.
Yeah, and the key insight here, I think, is what she calls the implied second half of the sentence in so many of these phrases we hear all the time. So when someone, probably trying to be reassuring, says, "At least you had her for as long as you did," what the grieving person often hears, maybe unconsciously, is, "So stop feeling so bad."
Right. Stop making me uncomfortable with your pain.
Exactly. It's not usually an intentional slight, but it unintentionally dismisses or diminishes their pain. It effectively tells them it's not okay to feel how you feel. True comfort, the author points out, it comes from acknowledging the reality of the pain, not trying to make it disappear or soften it with these, platitudes. It's about presence, not pronouncements.
It's actually unsettling when you realize how our attempts at comfort can backfire like that.
Yeah.
You mentioned everything happens for a reason, that one is everywhere. What's your critique of that specific phrase, and how does it tie into the bigger picture about our societal discomfort with pain?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, that phrase, "everything happens for a reason," while it sounds positive on the surface, it often implies that the griever somehow needed this loss, like needed it to grow or become a better person.
As if they weren't good enough before.
Precisely. It subtly suggests they weren't kind enough or compassionate or aware enough before the tragedy hit. And Megan Devine pushes back really hard against this. She emphasizes, you didn't need this, you don't have to grow from it, and you don't have to put it behind you. Choosing to find meaning, if and when you do, is an act of personal sovereignty, she argues. It's not some cosmic mandate imposed by a terrible event that pressure you to find a silver lining too soon, or maybe ever. It's just another layer of suffering piled onto the pain.
So these aren't just like innocent missteps with words. They're rooted much deeper in this societal discomfort with pain itself.
Yeah.
It pushes us to avoid it, fix it, explain it away. What's driving this profound unease with suffering? Why are we so afraid of it?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Why are we as a culture so afraid of raw, unfiltered pain? The book reveals this pervasive culture of blame and pain avoidance. We try to find fault, like blaming someone who drowned for maybe not wearing a life jacket, for example, not necessarily out of malice, but to create this illusion of safety for ourselves.
Ah, so it's self-protection. That wouldn't happen to me because.
Exactly. It's a subconscious way of convincing ourselves this couldn't happen to me because I would have done X, Y, or Z differently. It's frankly terrifying to face the arbitrary, just the tenuous nature of life, the sheer randomness of tragedy. And this fear, it also shows up in the cult of positivity, right? Where we're constantly pressured to look on the bright side, and even in what she calls spiritual bypassing.
Spiritual bypassing, what's that exactly?
It's a concept describing how we sometimes use spiritual practices or beliefs to avoid confronting painful emotions or, unresolved psychological stuff. It's like using spirituality to kind of skip over the hard work of actually processing grief, often by telling someone God has a plan or they're with the angels in a way that just shuts down their real emotional expression. It stops the conversation.
Yeah, let's unpack this even more. Most of us tend to think of grief as purely emotional, right? A feeling we need to process. But the book makes it so clear it's a profound, full-body, full-mind experience. What's actually happening physically and cognitively that most people just don't anticipate.
Yeah, this is a compelling aspect the book really highlights. Grief's total impact. It affects your entire being. Neurobiology studies she cites show that losing someone deeply actually changes your biochemistry. It affects everything from sleep patterns and appetite to your heart rate. Many grievers experience what she calls mystery pains, persistent headaches, stomach issues, body aches, maybe this generalized fatigue that doesn't have a clear medical cause. And cognitively, she describes it as a liminal time. You're neither one thing nor another, sort of suspended between two realities. Memory loss, confusion, profound brain fog, a drastically shortened attention span. She stresses these are all entirely normal. She talks about putting her keys in the freezer or momentarily forgetting her own dog's name after her partner Matt died. Your mind basically under such extreme stress, it can only hold on to so much. So it just drops what isn't essential for immediate survival, which can feel like you're losing your mind.
Wow, the keys in the freezer.
Yeah.
That really brings home the cognitive chaos, doesn't it? It sounds like you're not just dealing with the loss itself, but also wrestling with your own mind and body, feeling completely alien. What are some of the other surprising, maybe rarely discussed physical and mental things that grief does? Things people don't expect, especially just trying to navigate everyday life.
Oh, absolutely. This disorientation, it spills over into everything, creating what she perfectly calls grief landmines. A seemingly simple trip to the grocery store can become this overwhelming ordeal. And it's not just the fear of those well-meaning but intrusive questions like, how are you really? Or having your very private griefs suddenly become a public discussion. It's also the sudden assault of normalcy. Seeing happy couples, families, maybe holiday decorations, that stuff can trigger a panic response. She talks about literally running out of a store on Valentine's Day, just completely overwhelmed by these stark reminders of what she lost. Or maybe it's just a specific song on the radio, a familiar smell, or some random object that, boom, out of nowhere ignites a fresh wave of pain.
Yeah.
Which raises that important question, how do you navigate a world like that when your physical and emotional energy reserves are just tanked so low? The book offers this rather blunt tool she calls the vomit metric for big decisions.
What metric?
The vomit metric, her example is, if taking off your wedding rings makes you feel sick, it's not the right time to take them off. It's basically a call for radical self-kindness, for not forcing anything until you feel genuinely ready, honoring your body's intuitive signals, even the visceral ones.
That's quite direct. But I get it. Beyond those everyday triggers, grief often brings this immense pervasive anxiety, right?
Yeah.
Especially if there's trauma involved. The world can suddenly feel utterly unsafe, dangerous even. When you're caught in what she calls an anxiety spiral, what can you actually do in that moment?
Yeah, anxiety and grief it's like a survival mechanism run amok, she says. This relentless hamster wheel of fears that feels totally biological, not logical. You can't just reason your way out of it. So the book offers a simple but apparently remarkably effective short-term tool, just lengthening your exhale.
Lengthening your exhale.
Yeah, just consciously making your exhale noticeably longer than your inhale. That simple act can actively soothe the nervous system, help shift you out of that fight or flight response. She also suggests anchoring exercises, like intentionally naming mundane objects around you. Okay, there's a red car, there's a blue sign, a green tree. She did this when she felt overwhelmed in her car. It helps calm your brain when your inner world is melting. But interestingly, she advises against common relaxation techniques like focusing on your breath or visualizing a happy place.
Really? Why is that?
Well, for her, focusing on her breath reminded her intensely that Matt's body had no breath, and her happy place, which was by the river, was destroyed because that was the river where he drowned. So the book offers specific tailored techniques that acknowledge the unique, sometimes painful sensitivities of grief.
Okay, that makes sense. So if our usual cultural models are broken, if our instinct to fix grief just doesn't work, what does? The book suggests this crucial distinction, one that seems to profoundly shift the approach. The difference between pain and suffering. Let's really unpack that. It feels fundamental.
It really is. Here's where the perspective truly shifts. Pain, the author explains, is the natural, healthy, inevitable response to loss. It's an inherent part of grief that gets supported. It's that direct ache of absence, the sorrow, the longing. You can't, and maybe shouldn't try to, erase that. Suffering, though, is different. That's the arbitrary pain layered on top, the unnecessary additions that can be adjusted or reduced.
Okay, like what kind of additions?
Well, suffering often comes from things like societal pressures, you should be over this by now, or self-blame, or internalizing those unhelpful, comforting phrases we talked about, feeling like you're grieving wrong.
Hmm.
We need to see grief not as some test you have to pass or a puzzle to solve, but as an experiment in love. That's her phrase. A deeply personal process, unique to each individual. Embracing the messiness, the uncertainty, and learning to navigate it with compassion for yourself.
An experiment. I like that. It reframes something that feels so overwhelming, but what does that actually look like? Day to day, how do you experiment with something so disorienting?
It means becoming like a curious observer of yourself, gathering data, as she puts it.
Mhm.
She suggests keeping a log, maybe not a formal journal, but an internal or written record. What makes you feel steadier or calmer, even just slightly? And conversely, what exacerbates your suffering? For instance, you might note, went to the beach this morning, felt companioned by something, like the vastness of the water could hold everything. Or maybe, talked with my mother-in-law. As long as we discussed logistics for the memorial, I felt supported. But talking about anything else just devolved into craziness. Recognizing these patterns helps you understand where you actually have some agency, some control. It allows you to choose actions, environments, maybe even thoughts that reduce that unnecessary suffering while still honoring the core pain. It's about empowering yourself to make choices that serve your unique needs in that moment.
That makes sense. Gathering your own data. Another fascinating aspect you mentioned is the role of creative expression. Can things like writing or art truly help when it feels like everything is just falling apart? And if it doesn't fix grief, what does it actually achieve?
Yeah, she's very emphatic about this. Creating something good out of loss is not a trade and it's not a cure. Art won't fix grief in the sense of making the pain disappear. It's not the point. However, creative practices are a profound way to withstand grief, she says. A way to reduce suffering, even as it can't change the pain. It allows expression for a mind that, even in its chaos, naturally goes to creative expression. It helps you process, externalize, maybe deepen your connection with that which is lost. Because death changes relationships, right? It doesn't just end them. And creative acts can be a tangible way to maintain that bond, to continue the conversation in a new way. She recommends various things, journaling, obviously, but also personifying grief, giving it a voice, speaking to it, collage, even found poetry. Practices designed to bear witness to your own reality, to give form to the unformable, and just honor the experience without demanding it be neatly healed or packaged.
It sounds like a way to find your footing, maybe regain a sense of agency when the world feels utterly disorienting and isolating. And speaking of connection, the book introduces this really profound concept called the tribe of after. What's the significance of that for someone in deep grief?
Right.
This raises that critical question. How do you find companionship when you feel so intensely alone in your grief? When those around you, even loved ones, often just don't truly get it. The tribe of after refers to the community of fellow grievers, people who, because they've walked a similar path, understand your pain in a way others simply cannot. There's a shared language.
Shorthand.
Exactly, a shorthand. She shares this poignant story of realizing she only knew some of her new friends because someone is dead, and how their stories were the trail of breadcrumbs I followed when I got lost. It's about finding those people who can truly hear your pain, who can stand beside you, listening, bearing witness, without judgment, without that relentless need to fix you. That shared understanding can be an absolute lifeline in what often feels like a foreign country.
And what about the rest of us? The people who want to help but genuinely don't know how? How does this new model equip those who want to support someone who's grieving? Well, the new model for support she proposes is profoundly simple, really, yet radically effective. Show up, listen, don't fix. And this isn't just a mantra, it includes concrete advice like anticipate, don't ask. So instead of that well meaning, but often unhelpful offer, call me if you need anything, which puts the burden back on the griever to figure out what they need and ask for it.
Right, which they probably don't have the energy for.
Exactly. Instead, offer specific, actionable help. I will be there at 4 p.m. on Thursday to bring your recycling to the curb. Or, I'm dropping off a meal at 6 tonight. No need to even answer the door if you don't feel up to it. It's also crucial, she stresses, not to take a grieving person's low energy, or their forgetfulness, or maybe awkward responses personally. Because, as she puts it, they cannot access that part of their mind that forms lessons and offers feedback. Their cognitive resources are just depleted, their world has fundamentally shifted. Understanding that can totally transform how we offer support and how we perceive it.
Okay, so as we start to wrap up this deep dive, it's becoming really clear that grief, when seen through Megan Devine's lens, it's not a problem to be solved.
Yeah.
It's not a journey to get over. It's an experience to be carried, to be acknowledged, and ultimately maybe integrated into the evolving fabric of your life.
Precisely. She makes it crystal clear. There is no moving on, only moving with. The ultimate goal isn't the obliteration of the pain, but integration. Recovery in grief isn't about somehow returning to an old self or erasing the experience. It's about finding ways to live this experience with as much skill, self-kindness, and peace of being as you can. This really comes back to personal sovereignty. You get to define what healing looks like for you on your own terms, at your own pace. It's a continuous, evolving relationship with loss, not some finite stage you have to conquer.
That truly is a new model, isn't it? One that honors the depth of the love and the immensity of the loss. It suggests that even in the most profound brokenness, there's still a path to finding an authentic, maybe even a more deeply experienced life again. It sounds like creating a life that holds both things, the past and the present, the love and the absence, but with this profound sense of self-compassion. Yeah.
And here's where the perspective kind of comes full circle, I think. The author reminds us that safety does not live in the world around you. That feels radical, but she says safety resides solely in self-advocacy, listening to your own needs below the surface of your fears and responding accordingly. It's about accepting that love is what sustains us. When there is nothing else to hold on to love. This journey, she says, it's about learning to breathe in two countries, the life that was and the life that is now with love being that unwavering connection between both. It's a lifelong work in progress, she admits, but one that invites profound self-compassion and ultimately maybe a richer, more authentic way of living after loss.
A really powerful thought to leave you with, and one that encourages us not only to tend to our own hearts when needed, but maybe just as importantly to be better, more present, and truly supportive companions for each other on this journey. Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive.